Hey guys, Recon1 coming at you with another knife review. Today we're going to look at the Cold Steel Recon1. I've been wanting to do this review for quite some time. Basically, I've just been EDCing this knife, putting it through its paces, doing a little bit of work with it. Haven't had the opportunity to use it an awful lot, but carrying it and basic needs is basically what this knife has been going through. So I thought I'd just kind of share my mileage with you. This knife is the newer model. It's not really new anymore for Cold Steel, but the old one had their Ultra Lock, which the old AK-47 had as well. I had the Recon 1 in Spear Point with the Ultra Lock, and it just kept on having blade play. It was not a great hard use knife as far as I'm concerned. I do know that particular knife in Tanto, in the Tanto configuration, is what the Navy SEALs used, and for whatever they use it for, I'm sure that's fantastic. But I brought it outside camping and tried to do some things to it that maybe that you shouldn't do with a folder anyway. But of course, Cold Steel claims just the ultimate strength in its locking mechanisms. So I just wanted to put it through its paces and see how it would do, and it didn't do very well. This one, however, I have to say I am extremely impressed with. Just overall, this is a huge upgrade, just about in every way from the old design. Everything from the newer handles to the triad lock, just about everything on it is just fantastic. No complaints on this knife whatsoever. Well, I shouldn't say that. One or two, and I'll go through those quickly. But just a fantastic knife to start off with. The Cold Steel Recon 1 has an AUS 8A steel blade, which is a medium quality steel. However, Cold Steel, that's pretty much almost all they use now, and it does work very, very well for its intended purpose. And the nice thing about AUS 8A is that it sharpens up real easily. It's not one of those super steels that, although it keeps it a fantastic edge, is almost impossible to sharpen. It'll keep a fine edge, but you have to, as long as you strop it or steel it every so often, you'll never really have to sharpen it up. So far, I haven't had to sharpen this knife. All I do is I bring it home and I run the steel over it a couple times, and it's fine. The handle on it is a coarse textured G10 with no steel liners. This is a change from the previous model, which had steel liners, and also the handle in general, as far as comfort on this one, is so much nicer. It just has a fantastic feeling, and it is very thin. It's got a thin profile to it, but it fits in your hand perfectly well. And although there's no actual functional jimping up here, there really doesn't need to be, just because of the coarseness of the handle, which once it's in hand is incredibly comfortable. And then, of course, the deep choil and the secondary finger groove here. And it just wraps your hand right in there. It's very comfortable in just about any configuration. You can see we have the Recon 1 logo there, and then Cold Steel Taiwan. The Taiwan, that's where these are made, basically. The steel is Japanese AUS 8A, so they get the steel from Japan and they're made in Taiwan. I know some guys have a problem with that, but there's plenty of American-made offerings for you too. And I totally understand that. The triad locking mechanism, I know you guys probably already know how this works, but for those of you who do not, that pin right in there is a hardened steel pin that basically is just what it acts as is absorbs most of the shock onto the blade. So anytime there's pressure put on the edge of the blade, it immediately, is transferred to the pin rather than the locking bar. Same thing when anything is pressed against the back of the blade, it swings over and is actually hitting the pin as opposed to the locking bar itself. Now what that does is, because most lockbacks just are, the only connection is between the blade and the locking bar, a lot of wear and tear can happen with that. And it puts a lot of force on an otherwise, pretty small locking mechanism. If you see the lock inside, it's really not that big of a surface that it's actually locking against. So what this lock does is it actually gives it a secondary point of contact, actually almost a primary point of contact, just to absorb most of the shock on a hardened steel pin. So it's not going to just fail on you. It'll take it'll take the brute force on itself, which is really nice. It just, I've done spine wax on this thing. It's a fantastic knife. You can baton with this knife, and that's not something you can say with most folding knives. Even lockbacks. They say, a lot of people just swear by lockbacks because they're so strong. But I've had several lockbacks that, you just hit the spine once, and they just close right away. And it's kind of dangerous. I'd rather have a slip joint where I expect it to close, rather than a locking knife that does, in fact, close on you with very little pressure. The clip, the pocket clip on this knife, you get two. You can get this is for a left-handed carry, this is for right-handed carry. I threw the left-handed one away. I never will carry this knife that way. And then also you can change the pin so that the higher side is on the left-hand side if you want to do that. So lefties rejoice. Here's another knife for you. The textured G10 is very abrasive against your pocket. Cold Steel is kind of notorious now for their extremely high tension pocket clips, and they're improving more and more now on their pocket clips. However, this one is still extremely tight. So basically what I did was I took some tape, I taped off from the locking bar here, and didn't really need to over here, but I just took some sandpaper and then a sanding sponge, a wet sand sponge, and I just sanded right in this area here, basically just so that, the tension of this clip is going to keep that in your pocket no matter what. So I basically just sanded that down. You can see that the screws kind of lost their finish. This is just basically a work knife, so I'm not, too concerned about it or anything. But yeah, so sand that down if that's what you like, or you can look up Nut and Fancy has a modification using JB Weld that basically fills this in to make it completely smooth. And that's great too. But awesome knife. The deployment on it is just fast. It does take a bit of authority to open it, but the overall function of it is really nice. By the way, in case you don't know, I'm not cutting myself there. If you don't know how to close a lockback with one hand, there's a couple ways to do it. This is the way I do it. You put your thumb or your finger here. Now, keep in mind, this can only be done if you have a choil. When you get the knife, close it like this first with one hand, and just see where the choil, or rather not the choil, but the ricasso, which is the dull portion of the blade right here, see where that ends up. And that's where you can put your finger every time you close it. It's nice on this one because it's right where your index finger would be normally. You can see that. Okay, so when you close it, you just put your finger there, disengage the lock, flip it forward. Okay, you might not even have to put your finger there. Flip it over and close it. So there's a one-handed closing method for you. like I said, the radiusing of this knife is so much better than the original Recon 1 rather. The original had just really coarse textured G10 like this, but it also had square edges all the way around, and it was just it was just irritating in the hand. Was not a favorite knife of mine at all. I only had it for, I think, a couple weeks anyway. I EDC'd it for a little bit. It was so heavy and everything, it was hardly worth carrying. And for me to call a knife heavy, for what it gives me, that knife was very heavy. Just not a good carry knife for me at all. It does have a lanyard hole here as well. You can put some gutted paracord through there. It's a little bit big for regular paracord, but you can gut it and thread that through. The finish on this, you can see on a lot of reviews, if you put it through too much, the finish will just basically come right off, which actually looks kind of badass. I've seen a couple guys that take the Tonto version and smooth out the secondary point to make it more of an just an EDC friendly tip, and then they also just completely sand down the finish and the clip to have it with a satin finish or a brushed finish type steel look to it, and it's absolutely beautiful. I might do that to this, but basically I'm kind of keeping this knife this way right now for carry purposes with my Ruger LC9, which I will also do a review on if I get any interest in that. So yeah, great little knife. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned this, the blade is 4 inches long. It's a really, really nice, everyday carry / tactical knife. It's got that awesome clip style. Love that. So just a really kind of badass looking blade, but very, very friendly, like in the hand, and just ergonomic. Excellent, excellent knife. If you guys have any questions about it, just leave me a message on YouTube, and I'll be happy to get back to you. Thanks for watching.